So the Dolphins can lose at home to sub 500 teams. Very interesting. We'll get into some of that. Plus, Robert Saleh had some interesting comments on the future of Zach Wilson, despite the pretty good game over the weekend. We'll get into that too. Let's roll, baby.
Zoinks! It is unequivocally the Super Bowl for New York Jet fans.
Field Yates, baby. Field gosh darn Yates. Let's bring him on the show.
Come on, people. Connor Rogers is joining the show. What's up, Connor? But Trevor gosh darn Sycamore, baby, for me, personally, my favorite New York Jet of all time.
Wow, it's great to be on. What an intro that was right there.
Paul, nobody does an intro like you, man.
Paul, you give the best intro of literally any podcast that I've ever been.
I'm gonna lose my gosh darn bananas.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Weston Jr., a.k.a. Boy Green. This is Boy Green Daily, a daily New York Jets video program. And we're joined by a special guest every day for about 20 minutes and change. So without further ado, let's bring him in. Ryan friggin' Delaney, Jets Talk 24/7, Roundtable Sports, random game show host. I mean, he's got a lot on the resume. Ask Ryan, my first question, is this a game show? Am I competing for $1 million? Is my life on the line? What's happening right now? Yeah.
Thanks for having me on, Paul. Looking forward to talking some football. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I could put you on the spin wheel.
Yeah, that'd be great. Can you tell us about that? Well, that's a new project. Some people may not be aware. Give us the deets. What's popping there?
Yeah, for sure. So it's more of like your around the horn style kind of. I don't know if I'd necessarily classify it as a game show, but I guess it kind of works out that way with the like Wheel of Fortune kind of wheel. 3 rounds of eliminations. You get your favorite content creators on there, and then we let fate decide who gets eliminated. And the viewers that are viewing get to save someone from each round. So they're not determining who gets voted out, but they get to determine who gets to stay on. So a little fun.
And what happens when they win? Again, is it $1 million?
$1 million. Hopefully, eventually, we're not monetized on that channel yet. So if you want to head over there, Roundtable Sports, give us a little sub.
Very nice.
Still new.
Good work there. Okay, I love it. Excellent. Well, Ryan, it's always fun when you get a new project on top of all the Jet stuff too. So congratulations. It should be a lot of fun, man. So without further ado, let's get into a couple of things. How about last night? The friggin' Miami Dolphins at home. They show that record before the game starts. It's something like 19-2. It was some wild record that the Dolphins were at home. Like, hey man, we don't play around. We smack people around here at home. I'm like, oh boy, here we go. This Titans team kind of working their way in here. Let's see what they do. And the Tennessee Titans pull off the upset against the Miami Dolphins. Wow. And the Titans, when you look at some of the numbers, like defensive numbers or anything else, I mean, this is a mid-team, man. And wow, with the Dolphins having the number 1 seed on the line and everything else. Wow, boy, did they drop the ball. That's pretty I smell, if I'm a Jet, I smell a little Dolphins blood in the water, baby. Tasty.
Oh, yeah, for sure. This felt good to watch. There's not many teams that I'm like really upset with or like irritated with. Their fan base just drives me bonkers right now. They haven't beaten a team over 500 in over a year. They kind of retroactively got it with Denver from earlier in the season, but that Denver team that they threw 70 points on is a totally different Denver team than what we're seeing right now. Look, I understand injuries come into play with a lot of stuff, but the Dolphins were gifted that win. They were spotted 14 points at the end of that game by the Tennessee Titans special teams. And you know what? It's just, it couldn't happen to a better team. Glad they lost it.
All right, let me ask you this, because this is a fan point that we will be bashing our brains against a caveman wall forever with. Do you like that the Dolphins lost yesterday? Because now they have a heightened sense of something heading into this Jets game. Does that matter? Is that real, or is that made up malarkey?
No, I mean, I think there's definitely something to it. I think if they would have won that game, then there's some degree of like calming and you're not like overly amped up. Now that they've lost a game, they're going to be back on their heels. They're going to try and give us everything they got. But at the same time, like that's how I want to face them. I don't want to face them necessarily with a hobbled Tyreek Hill and all these different injuries that they have on the offensive line. I would like them to be at full strength. So that way, when we beat them into submission with Zachy Poo, oh, it's going to feel so much better.
So let's get into that. Zach Wilson. I'm curious, before we even get to what Robert Saleh said yesterday, like Zach Wilson in general, he gets the job back. There was a report that there was reluctancy to play. And then there was another report from his hometown back in BYU, Utah land that they already told him, hey, pal, you're getting traded. And Saleh didn't exactly shoot that down yesterday, which we could get into. But how do you view it? How did you view it, I guess? Maybe it's hard to remove that from your brain of Sunday, but the final 5 games of Zach Wilson trotting back out there where it kind of looked like the last time he was benched, it was kind of the end of the road no matter what.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of conversation that's happening with the Jets and Zach Wilson right now. I don't think I think there's definitely truth to the conversation of like, we'll explore what's going to happen in the offseason. I don't think they've said, hey, you're going to be traded in the offseason, so don't worry about it. I think there's a lot of probably projection that's happening there. Maybe Zach talked to someone back home in Utah. The guy that broke that story has 124 followers on Twitter. So even though the paper's like legit, I don't know if I'd necessarily buy the source. But with Saleh not shooting it down, because if you didn't have those conversations, why not just say, no, Zach's a Jet, he's not going anywhere. So there's something to it for sure.
Yeah, I will say the following, and then I'm gonna mispronounce it, but Desert News. You kind of go, what the hell? But yeah, the guy Doug Robinson. It's interesting. He's been working there for like 1,000 years since the 80s. It's hard to judge, especially nowadays. I think we look through things even through a greater finer tooth comb than ever before. When we see something, we're like, are you real? What's happening there? What's about
124 followers though? That's pretty much the entirety of Utah, I think.
So wow, the 100% population. Very nice there by Doug Robinson. But that's the thing to me. So at first you see the kind of weird, like I don't want to speak for you. I had never heard of Desert News before this week or last week. I mean, so that part was there. But then as soon as Saleh on a silver platter, here is a direct report that said this. Do you confirm or deny said report? It's like, I don't share private conversations. And that's a Joe Douglas question. I'm like, I thought for sure he was going to be like, no, I did not tell him he's going to be traded. What kind of crazy rando BS are you bringing me? So again, he just leaves the speculation doors interesting, which I find fascinating. Here's the other thing also, and I wonder if you evaluate it the same way as it just me, because I'm a crazy bastard. Sometimes I just see things, people like, that's just you. Okay, so here's this. Saleh has something to the effect. Okay, I'll paraphrase a little bit. But man, do you believe Zach Wilson can play his way back into the play-ins in 2024? And Saleh goes, well, anything's possible. And I pause time in that moment. And I say, anything's possible. He's under contract for 2024. Of course he's going to be back. Like that would be the coach response. Well, yeah, why wouldn't he be back? He's under contract. But to say anything is possible is to then lead credence to the other reports that maybe he won't be here. It's like I brought it up in my article. It's like the Alan Lazard thing. Yeah, he's only here for the next year and a half. What was that? Coach, he's signed a 4-year deal, $44 million. Are you talking about the guaranteed money that you're going to get out of? Probably shouldn't have said that publicly. I kind of got those vibes. Did you get the same, or are we reading too much into this?
No, I think that's the right amount of read into it. I think when you look at a young quarterback like Zach and potentially has the number 2 overall pick, it's only natural if you're not going to retain him or he's not going to play his way back into the starting role. We have Aaron Rodgers. We've got a high pick coming, probably in the top 10 if things don't break the right way. I think it's more realistic than anything else. Like Lazard, when he signed that contract, us as content creators sitting there saying, okay, he's got $20 million worth of guaranteed money. That's 2 years on the books. And then you move off them. It's just sort of the reality of NFL contracts. So I don't know if I'm going to read too crazy far into it. It's similar to like the Sam situation where we got to decide on Zach's 5th-year option this year, just like we had to deal with Sam, and we wound up making the move that offseason. So I think it's more realistic than anything else.
Yeah, also may have been a slip. Alan Lazard in the locker room when he was asked about Zach Wilson. He's like, yeah, he's only got a few weeks left. Now, he could just be talking about the season, but that's kind of a weird way to say that too. But anywho, it's neither here nor there. We got Ryan friggin' Delaney, Jets Talk 24/7, questionable whether or not the game show host will be added to that or just host of said channel. But we want it to be a game show and making money, so make sure you guys obviously hit the sub button on the channel. Roundtable Sports, fantastic. All right, let me ask you this. Zach Wilson. Okay, so now he has this crazy game. Perhaps one of the best of his career. Not perhaps one of the best. It is one of the best, but whether or not how you judge it. I probably put it up there because, again, that was his first win with 300. I believe those are viewed differently than ones you're just kind of padding stats like that Patriot 355 game and just dropping bombs all over the place. So this one's probably one of the best, but now you have 4 games left to play. Do you believe Zach Wilson can do it again? Can lightning strike twice in the same place? Because I don't know if we've ever seen it in Zach Wilson's career to have back-to-back performances of this nature.
Yeah, we haven't seen the back-to-back performances from Zach yet, and consistency has always been the key because you've seen little teeny tiny glimpses, and in the microcosm that we have seen, it's been like, okay, there's this one play or this one drive that gives you so much hope, and last week he put it all together in this kind of F it, I don't care, I'm going to be out of here anyway. That's what I liked about it because it kind of unlocked him. And it gives you a little pause for like thought, like, okay, LaFleur and Saleh. Salah is obviously a defensive head coach. He wants to play conservative. He wants his defense to be able to take care of business. Was Saleh clipping his wings? Was LaFleur clipping his wings? Was, Hackett to some degree? We're seeing some offensive production out of, the wide receivers where guys are running open and Boyle and Simeon just aren't throwing the ball. So I think more than anything for me with Zach is I'm looking forward to what these next 4 games are. It's giving me something to watch. I'm not going to sit here and see like a 6-0 game. When we went into halftime at 0-0, I thought for sure this game was going to end 0-0. I really did.
We almost had one over the weekend, Vikings Raiders, to a last-second field goal, apparently. So we could have seen that. Let me ask you about that. There's controversy in Jet social media. Like, people are beating each other up. Where the hell have we got? Where the hell have we got? You probably already know where I'm going. So the Jets win this game in emphatic fashion, 30-6, snap a 5-game losing streak. The vibes are immaculate, or so we thought. Okay, the Jets get the win. A lot of fans are like, son of a gun. Because here it is. If the Jets would have lost to the Houston Texans right now, today, they would hold the number 4 overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft. They do not. The Titans actually have a surprising win, so how it all stacks up, according to Tankathon, is 7th overall now for the New York Jets. But a lot of people are mad that the Jets are, quote-unquote, screwing up the tank. Thoughts, Ryan Delaney?
So I can understand where fans are at that point, where you're like, hey, the percentage chance of you getting into the playoffs are so astronomically low that you want to just get the best future for your team in the draft pick. But it goes without saying, you got to pick the right player. I mean, depending on how you feel about Zach, we had the number 2 overall pick and we flubbed it up in a draft that was loaded with studs. A few years ago, you look at the New York Giants, they won the final game of the season, lost out on Chase Young. Oh no, what's going to happen? And they wind up drafting their franchise left tackle. Chase Young's no longer on the Commanders. So you got to make the right pick either way. There's a lot of really good players in this draft, and I think the Jets are going to get a really good one, regardless of where we're at.
Do you get offended? Do you look at, like, when you're walking in the streets and you see like Jet fans begging for Tank on the side of the street, do you go, disgusting, and keep walking, or like what? Or do you like try to pick them up? Come on, man, you're part of the team. Join in. What's your take on those guys?
Nah, look, I'm not bummed about it either way. I'm not going to tell someone how they should fan, but I think if I'm being honest, looking at Trevor Siemian and Tim Boyle, I'm thinking like, all right, well, I don't know if we're good enough to win any games. So I'll just sit back and I'll just have a neutral feeling going into it. If we win, cool. If not, I'm all about the top 5 pick. I would have been fine with a Marvin Harrison Jr., a Joe Alt, a Olu Fashanu, or a trade out with a team that wants a quarterback. Like, that's really appealing to me. But at the same time, it's not as appealing as watching our number 2 overall pick that we've already invested money into and, draft assets go out and win. Like, it would have been different if Simeon gets this game in a victory, running the ball with Frank Gore and like all these, old has-beens like Randall Cobb winds up winning the game. But no, you got to see Jeremy Ruckert ball out, Conklin, Brees, Garrett, Zach. Like, this was a good team win, not just a like, oops, we accidentally won. This was offensive firepower. This is what the Jets team could look like week in and week out with competent quarterback play and no drop passes, no penalties. Offensive line plays, pretty legit. I'm excited. This gives me hope for the future, not so much the doom and gloom of losing a pick.
Yeah, and it felt a lot better, just first off, to get a win in general, that's cool. To get an emphatic win, they won by 24 points over a team that was and still is firmly in the playoff mix with a quarterback who is leading the league in passing yards. So this wasn't some scrub-ass team that they beat. So that one felt good, too, that it isn't, to your point, right? 3-0 win? Yeah. We did that, I guess. There wasn't any Vikings Raiders action happening. All right, let's get back to Zach. I don't know if we can put a percentage point on it or what. What are the chances you give Zach Wilson of having a repeat performance? And it doesn't necessarily have to be 300 yards, but like looking as he did, really good. You can pick whatever measurable, 75% completion percentage, 300 yards, 2 tutties, no picks, like whatever stat or anything. Just the eye test of looking pretty good in back-to-back weeks? What chances are you giving him heading into this week's game against the Miami Dolphins?
I think in previous weeks, maybe I give it a little lower percentage chance. I think it's a little bit higher. One, Zach seems to have found a little bit of a swagger that last half of the game. I'd like to see it carry over, obviously. But with Miami losing last night, and they got a bunch of injuries on the offensive line, it seems to be reeling a little bit. Who knows if Tyreek Hill is going to be fully healthy by the time we play?
Yeah.
I think there's a good shot that with Zach not playing against the Dolphins the first time around, maybe there's some, motivational juices that come out and he winds up putting on a show. I mean, the Jets were 10-6 to Miami before the Fail Mary or whatever you want to call it, the Hail Mary. And I think this defense is going to find a little bit more of a swagger if they know they might be able to play with a lead. I think Zach has the opportunity, if it's not going to be for us, like if he's destined to get traded or whatever it is, he's going to try and maximize his potential return. So I think the Jets are going to put him in a good position. I think he's going to try and put himself in a good position. I think it's just sort of primed these last few games, Miami, Commanders, Browns, and Patriots, for him to really show out.
Is Zach Wilson on the team in 2024?
So I think he will be. I think what's going to happen is he's going to play well enough where we're going to sit back and say, you know what? Maybe something's clicked. It's taken 3 years. It's not unreasonable to think it could take that long. You saw Alex Smith take a little bit longer to develop. Steve Young from BYU obviously took a little bit longer to develop. And I think it would be really frustrating for Joe Douglas to see him move off of Zach Wilson for a loss in draft capital. Like I can't see us getting a 3rd round pick for him, but let's say it's a 4th round pick. Would you really want to give up Zach Wilson for a 4th round pick when you can have him compete to be quarterback 2 with the high upside of having what we saw this past Sunday as his upside? So for me, with Rodgers here, with everyone running it back, I think it makes more sense to have him as quarterback 3, as long as the locker room hasn't imploded and the coaching staff and player relationship hasn't really eroded enough to the point where it can't be salvaged.
Okay, you said it there, but I just want to make sure I clarified for our beautiful listeners and viewers and watchers and all those other words and things of that nature, that if Zach Wilson was to be brought back or retained, rather, because he's still under contract, obviously, through 2024, is he solely QB3? Is he competing with insert veteran quarterback for QB2? Whatever happens, but you're probably going to be keeping 3 guys on the roster: Rodgers, Wilson, and young, or I guess it wouldn't be young guy. It would probably have to be veteran, I guess. But whatever that construct is, that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, I think you'd probably want to bring in a veteran backup either way, because you don't want to have what happened this past year to happen again. But where I fall on the Zach Wilson stuff is I think he's probably somewhere along the lines of 4th or 5th down on the list of things that went wrong this season. You could, say injuries, you could say offensive line, you could say Hackett, you could say the penalties, you could say wide receivers dropping passes. I mean, this past game was really the first game that we played a full, complete game from all the different units on the field. So I think you're probably going to see a veteran backup quarterback that's going to compete with Zach to push him to be quarterback 2. And then, maybe there's an off chance where, a really talented quarterback that you like, maybe he falls to you in the draft, and then the Jets maybe swing a draft day trade as opposed to going into the season with him. But I think the plan for right now, if he plays 75% of what we saw this past Sunday through these last 4 games, I think he'll be the backup next year for Aaron Rodgers.
And, so you answer it there, but there was some speculation. Zach Rosenblatt was talking about this on the Can't Wait podcast, that if he plays well, he being Zach Wilson, through these bunch of games, Zach has actually the opposite take, that, okay, the better he plays, the more his trade value increases, and then he's flipped. From that perspective. But how fine is that line for you? Because again, if he plays really well, I think a lot of Jet fans are going to rally around that, going, wait a second here. If we just put a detonation bomb on this thing, and then he immediately becomes Geno Smith somewhere else, I know that's an outlier example, but if he goes out and has immediate success, the Jets are going to get more egg on the face. So if he plays well, it's like, ooh, but also to potentially keep, as that Aaron Rodgers room that he never got the chance. He was supposed to be the backup all year long, and unfortunately, injuries happened, and he was thrust out there. And maybe his entire football career will change, especially if he gets traded. Then he would have been stripped away from ever having that opportunity.
Yeah, I think there's definitely a line you got to tread. You got to determine what is the value that you feel like that risk is worth. A 4th round pick for me is probably that tipping point. I don't know. I don't think I make the trade necessarily for a 4th round pick unless there's someone that I want on the board in the 4th round at that particular point in time. Third round pick, I think you have to. There's just too many good starters.
So that would be, just to clarify, the fourth round pick acquisition, in your opinion, would have to be like a draft day trade. There's someone you like, okay, let's go get this guy, as opposed to in March, Zach Wilson's been traded for a fourth round pick.
Yeah, especially if he plays the rest of the season, like how we saw this past game. Like if he gets traded for a fourth before the draft, I kind of feel like, man, I don't know if that was a great move, because we still need a backup quarterback. And Zach Wilson's upside is so much higher than anyone else's that we're going to draft at this particular point. Because you're not going to take one in the first round. You don't have a second round pick right now unless you trade down or move a player for it. Like if you're going all in for a Super Bowl, I think it makes more sense to have Zach here. And I don't know if the fourth round pick is really going to save Douglas's career the way a number 2 overall pick succeeding behind Aaron Rodgers could save Joe's career.
Are you in favor of bringing the entire group back? Hackett, Douglas, Saleh, the whole group. Let's run it back, baby. 2024. Here we go.
So I think they have. I think it would be sad to see them get canned after their whole season was built up to be on Aaron Rodgers. Like I put a lot of blame on Hackett for a lot of different things. Running the ball on 2nd and 10 consistently. It's almost like you could just you know what's going to happen every time. I'm yelling at the TV screen. I think you'll see everyone come back. I don't know if you'll see someone fired now that we're not going on like a 10-game losing streak. I would love to see some type of offensive assistant brought in, whether it be an assistant head coach on the offensive side of the ball. Like, hey, we're going to go all out. But I think with Rodgers, I think he's really kind of pulling a lot of the strings with Douglas and what they promised him going into the season. Now you have to pivot a little bit. You can't entirely put everything on what Rodgers wants to do, but I think there's going to be a lot of influences from Joe Douglas's ego with Zach Wilson to the relationship with Aaron Rodgers to, not wanting to be embarrassed if you're, Woody Johnson, if Zach goes on to have success elsewhere. So I don't know. I'd like to see Zach here.
The Jets are 5-8. What do they finish up at?
9-8, baby.
That's it. I feel the same way, to be honest, because it's funny the change heading into prior to this Texans game. You're like, man, maybe Commanders, maybe this game, but I'm like, with excuse my Guatemalan here, but shit, you got to score points to win any of these games, and they're not scoring any of these points. How the hell are they going to do anything? Now, as soon as they show that burst against the Texans, you're like, well, we're scoring points like this. You throw the defense in there, boom, they could beat any of these teams. So, it's kind of that fine line there, but now I'm completely on the other side. I'm like, okay, baby, let's ride. We're back to the playoff picture. Although ESPN last night didn't put the Jets in the hunt. They put a bunch of other 5-8 teams. I get it. Those other 5-8 teams have the head-to-head tiebreaker, but why not put an extra graphic there? Hey, Jets, boop, put them lower on the graphic. I don't give a flying hoot, but put us on the gosh darn graphic, man. What the hell, Ryan? What the hell, man?
Dude, if we could sneak in, the last few games have given me hope because like you, I did not think the Jets were just going to be good enough to win those games. I thought the offense was just going to be sort of stalling out, more of what we've seen the previous 5 weeks. Like seeing what we did against the Texans really, really makes you pissed off that we lost to the Falcons, that we lost to the Raiders, that we lost to the Patriots, and like all these, like even the Chargers where we got like,
I was going to say that one
quote
too.
unquote blown out. That game wasn't out of control. Zach fumbled 2 balls that led to 14 points. He got sacked, took us out of field goal range. That took us 3 points off the board. If you take 17 points and flip that scoreboard, and all of a sudden the Jets have some type of offensive production, this team's really good. So give me hope going into next year. Show free agents that this is where they want to play. The Jets are being wronged. We had some terrible luck because Aaron Rodgers went out, but if it wasn't for that, the Jets would be dominating the AFC this year.
All right, Ryan, finish it off. Jets, Dolphins, give us a prediction. What are we going to get? Of course, as I give the caveat and all the rules and everything to everybody, obviously, we're recording this on a Tuesday live. We have no idea the injury situation. Tyreek Hill obviously was banged up. He was in and out of the game, herky-jerky. I thought it was more so decoy why he was in there late because you have the threat of Tyreek. But again, we'll figure out all that information as you get later. But as presently constructed, with all the information we know currently, what is your prediction for Jets Dolphins?
24-17, Dolphins score a garbage time touchdown to make it 17. Jets win in impressive fashion.
Hot the K, mama, iya, iya, uh-oh. That's what I'm talking about, baby. Oh, yes. That's very nice. And Phil, this last second YouTube super chat coming in, did Zach do good practice against similar defense? That, to be honest, that was kind of my rationalization heading into the game of why I predicted the Jets would win 24-6 on my morning show on Sunday, is because the Texans and the Jets, that's again the Spider-Man meme, as Robert Saleh said, but the Texans are a worse version of it. They're early on in the stage, especially from a defensive perspective. Obviously, Stroud is way above anything Zach was, but from a defense perspective, they're on level 1. The Jets are on hopefully level 12, 13, 14 in year 3. So Zach is going to see a lesser version of like the greatest defense of all time. Okay. I just love that matchup. And I again, with the Jets defense doing this to Jalen Hurts, Patrick Mahomes, and all these other dudes, what are they going to do to rookie quarterback? Hey, come here, pal. Let me show you a few tricks you haven't seen. And that poof, poof, a little smack, smack, pow, pow. So that's what I thought. So thank you, Phil, for that one. That's what, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's very interesting, the whole like, oh, this is the defense he goes against in practice. It's also the defense CJ Stroud goes against in practice. So even though they're not to the level of the Jets, you would think the leading NFL yards, leader in CJ Stroud would have more than, double-digit yards.
Yeah, you would think. I guess not. Well, Ryan Gashtar Delaney, it's lovely having you on the show. We promoted a little Roundtable Sports. What else do you got cooking? What else is on the docket?
Yeah, I do my normal, post-game streams, pre-game streams for the Jets, and then I'm starting to turn my attention towards the draft. Although now with Zach having a little bit more success, I'm getting, really excited with this. I do the every throw video after each game, so if you want to go back and see what Zach Wilson did, you can watch a condensed version of it over on Jets Talk 24/7.
All right, beautiful. And everybody, we will be speaking to a Jets player later today that is vying for a Pro Bowl berth. All right, I'll let you guys do the speculation until that puppy post and do that interview a little later today. So keep an eye out for that one, folks. Appreciate you. And make sure you subscribe to Roundtable Sports, Jets Talk 24/7. All of the Jets talking live friggin' panel. They got all the juice. They got all the smoke. And we'll see you then tomorrow morning. Boy Green Daily. Take care, everybody. God bless.